The hanger was still swinging. That's how fast she shoved it back in. I wasn't even supposed to be home yet. The delivery route ran late on Thursdays, and she knew that. She timed everything. Dinners, her showers, her silences. But that day, someone called out sick, and I got released 2 hours early. I should have texted her, but I didn't. And I think about that decision more than any other moment in my life. When I stepped into the hallway, the house didn't feel wrong. It felt too right. Candle burning, dishwasher humming, faint perfume in the air that didn't belong to her. Vanilla bourbon. Tessa hated vanilla. I called out her name once. No answer. So I dropped my keys in the bowl and walked past the kitchen into the bedroom. That's when I saw the closet door, half open, like it was mid-confession. She stood there in front of it, bare feet, no makeup, no smile, just still, like a child caught sneaking cookies. And then she said it. Don't freak out. That's it. That's how she opened the conversation. Not, hi, not, you're home early, not, let me explain, just, don't freak out. So, of course, I freaked out. I pushed the door open and saw it hanging there. A tan suede jacket with a broken zipper and a concert patch sewn on the sleeve. Not mine, not hers. Not anything I've ever seen before in this house. My heart didn't drop. It paused. You have 3 seconds, I said. Not because I was threatening her, because I genuinely needed her to say something before my brain spiraled into places I wasn't ready to go. She stepped in front of me like she was protecting the jacket. Not me. Not our relationship, the jacket. It's not what you think, she said, which is wild because I hadn't said anything yet. But here's where it gets even stranger. She didn't tell me whose it was. She didn't tell me why it was there. She didn't tell me anything. Instead, she asked me a question. Do you trust me? And I swear to you, swear on every boring day we ever spent together, I said yes, and I meant it. But 3 days later, at her boss's birthday party, I would find out exactly who that jacket belonged to. And it would break everything. The jacket never came up again. Not once. For 3 days, I walked around our house like it was rented. Like I didn't know where anything really belonged. She didn't bring it up and I didn't ask. Not because I was over it, because I was scared. Scared that whatever answer she had, it would be worse than the silence. And for some dumb reason, I wanted to preserve the illusion just a little longer. I told myself it could have been her brothers, or someone from work, or a thrift store thing she found and forgot to mention. Lies are easy to invent when the truth feels radioactive. Then came the invitation. Her boss, Owen, was throwing a birthday party on the rooftop of some upscale sushi place. One of those trendy spots that pretends to be minimalist, but charges $22 for seaweed on a plate. Tessa was excited. Too excited. Said it was kind of a big deal that we were invited, that partners never get included unless you're in someone's good graces. I asked if she still wanted me to come. She paused just a second too long. Of course, she said. You're my husband. That didn't sound like love. That sounded like protocol. We got dressed in separate rooms. I wore the blazer she liked, the one that didn't quite fit right around the shoulders. She wore a black jumpsuit with one sleeve, red lipstick, and perfume that was definitely not vanilla. She looked like someone going somewhere she couldn't wait to be. The party was already full when we arrived. Music thumped from hidden speakers. Glass walls reflected the skyline like it was trying to impress us. And everyone there looked like they knew exactly what their net worth was. Tessa instantly disappeared into the swirl of high heels and handshakes. I stood near the bar like a misplaced coat. Then I saw him. Owen, tan suede jacket, broken zipper, concert patch. My lungs stopped working for a second. He was holding a drink and laughing like nothing in the world could touch him. Tessa was next to him, holding his arm, holding it, not brushing it, not tapping it, holding it, like she was afraid he'd disappear if she didn't. They didn't see me. I should have walked out. I should have made a scene. I should have flipped a tray of sushi and said something that would get me banned from the building. Instead, I stood there, paralyzed. Not because I was shocked, but because a part of me already knew. It wasn't the jacket. It wasn't the laugh. It wasn't even the way she looked at him. It was the fact that, in that moment, I realized I wasn't in her life anymore. I was adjacent to it. I stayed another 10 minutes, long enough for her to notice me from across the rooftop. Her face didn't change. She just blinked. One slow blink. Then she turned back to Owen. That was it. I left without saying goodbye. Got in the truck. put my hand on the wheel. And that's when my phone buzzed. Come, no punctuation, no emoji, no apology. Just like the last time. And for reasons I still can't explain, I turned the key and went back. I don't remember making the U-turn. I don't remember parking again or walking back into the building. All I remember is the buzzing, that single word, come, ringing in my head like an alarm no one else could hear. It wasn't even what she said. It was when she sent it. 5 minutes after I left. Same exact timing as the last time. Like clockwork, like a signal. I couldn't tell if I was chasing answers or just trying to prove to myself that I still mattered. The elevator smelled like lime and cigarette smoke. A woman stepped in behind me just before the doors closed. I didn't look at her at first. I was too focused on what I was going to say when I saw Tessa. But then the woman spoke, low and calm, like she was reading a bedtime story. You shouldn't go back up there. I turned. She was maybe in her mid-40s, sleek dress, clipboard in hand, like she worked for the building or the event. Her eyes didn't blink when she looked at me. Excuse me, I said. They always come back right before it breaks, she added. You can't unsee something twice. Before I could ask what that meant, the doors opened on the rooftop level and she stepped off in the opposite direction without another word. I stood frozen. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but I stepped out anyway, into the glowing noise and rooftop warmth, and a party that somehow looked even more alive than it had 20 minutes earlier. Like the volume had been turned up, but not just in sound, in energy. Everyone was looser, drunker, laughing harder, bodies leaning closer. The kind of shift that only happens after the first layer of masks have melted off. I scanned the crowd for Tessa, but she wasn't near Owen anymore. In fact, Owen was gone too. I walked through the rooftop slowly, pretending to be casual, nodding at strangers like I was supposed to be there. I passed a woman crying quietly into her phone near a planter. A man with a beard was handing out something in little plastic bags that didn't look like party favors. A couple in their 50s were slow dancing to a song that didn't match the beat. It felt like I'd stepped into a different party entirely, like I'd come back and found a copy of the original, but slightly off. Then I saw her, Tessa, downstairs. Through the glass wall at the far end of the rooftop, I spotted her reflection in the mirror across from the stairwell. She was standing alone on the mezzanine level just below, not moving, staring out the window like she was waiting for something, or someone. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heartbeat getting louder with each step. When I reached the mezzanine, I found her standing near a catering tray, holding a drink but not sipping it. She turned to me slowly, like she wasn't surprised I came back at all. You didn't stay long, she said. I stared at her. Why did you text me? She didn't answer immediately. She looked past me, then to the floor, then finally back at my face. I just didn't want you to leave like that. Like what? Like someone who thinks I don't care. And that's when I noticed something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Panic. Not sadness, not guilt, fear, not of me, of something else. Then I heard the voice, deep, male, from behind the catering wall. I thought you said he wasn't coming back. Tessa's eyes darted toward the voice and then back to me. Murray, just don't make a scene. I stepped around the corner and saw him. Owen, jacketless, holding his tie in his hand like he'd just taken it off. He looked at me the way you look at a problem that's about to escalate, and then he smiled, not nervously, not kindly, but like he knew something I didn't. I wish I could tell you I stormed up to him, that I said something brave, something final, like in the movies. I wish I could tell you I punched him in the jaw or screamed her name so loud the whole rooftop froze. But I didn't. I just stood there, blinking, stuck somewhere between disbelief and humiliation. My hands sweating so badly I had to wipe them on the inside of my jacket pockets. Owen, meanwhile, looked completely relaxed. His shirt was untucked slightly on one side, like he'd just come from a photo shoot where they styled him to look accidentally charming. He took a sip from his drink and leaned one arm on the catering table, watching me with that same knowing, half smirk that had been stamped on his face since the moment I met him. It wasn't just arrogance, it was familiarity. He wasn't surprised I came back. He expected it. Tessa didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood a few steps behind me, like she'd temporarily forgotten which side she was supposed to be on. That alone hurt more than anything. Her silence, her distance, her inability to even step beside me, let alone defend me. So, Owen finally said, drawing out the word like he was tasting it. You came back? Interesting. I swallowed hard. Is this some kind of joke to you? He raised his eyebrows, like I was being overly dramatic. Murray, right? I didn't answer. My fists were clenched, but I didn't lift them. I didn't even step forward. I just stared at him and waited for her to speak. Because I didn't come back for a fight. I came back for her, for the explanation, the apology, the sliver of humanity I thought still lived inside the woman I married. But she still hadn't said a word. Tessa, I said quietly, turning to her, tell me what this is. She looked at me, eyes wide and glassy. And I swear to God, for a split second, I thought she was about to say everything. Let it spill out, admit it, ask for forgiveness, anything. But instead, she whispered something I didn't expect. Let's go talk somewhere else. No, I said, shaking my head. No more back rooms, no more waiting until he's gone. No more pretending nothing's happening while the whole room can see it. Owen chuckled softly. You really don't get it, do you? And that was the moment I snapped. Get what? I barked. That my wife has been sneaking around with her boss? That she texts me to come back like I'm some kind of pet and I actually do it? That you're standing here looking at me like I'm the punchline in a joke I don't even understand? Owen shrugged. I'm not trying to be cruel. I just don't think she told you the full story. Or maybe she told you exactly as much as she wanted you to know. I turned to Tessa again. My voice was smaller this time. Did you? She looked like she might faint. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or shame or fear or something entirely different. But then she stepped forward and reached into her bag. Wait, she said. I didn't want it to happen like this. Like this? Not, I didn't want this to happen, but not like this. As if betrayal had an appropriate format, and we'd simply missed the mark. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, thin, creased, something printed and then folded twice, intentionally. She held it out to me. I didn't take it, I just stared at it. What is it? I asked. It's why I brought you here tonight. Owen was still watching us, now with mild amusement, like he was enjoying the scene but didn't plan to be a part of the third act. He stepped back, nodded at her, then disappeared into the stairwell, taking his drink with him. And just like that, it was me, Tessa, and whatever secret she'd been carrying in that bag for God knows how long. I finally took the paper, unfolded it, read the header, and my knees nearly gave out. It wasn't a love letter, it wasn't a confession, it was a contract, a non-disclosure agreement, and right next to her signature was mine, except I never signed anything. The paper shook in my hand, not because of the rooftop breeze, but because I couldn't control the tremor in my fingers. I read the first paragraph 3 times, each time more slowly, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something rational, but they didn't. It was all real. It was a corporate non-disclosure agreement, issued by her company, stamped, dated, legally binding. And at the bottom of the page, under a thick horizontal line, sat 2 signatures, hers neat and looped like she practiced it, and mine in a scrawl that looked vaguely familiar but not quite right, like someone had copied it from a birthday card I once signed. I stared at it until the lines blurred. This isn't funny, I muttered. What the hell is this? Tessa didn't look surprised. That somehow made it worse. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't ask what I was talking about. She just folded her arms like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I needed you to see it, she said, before things go further. Further? I laughed, but it came out hollow. You've been sneaking around with your boss. You've gaslit me in our own house, and now I'm holding legal paperwork with my fake signature on it. Please, Tessa, what's the next step? Public humiliation? A live-streamed confession? She closed the gap between us. Too close. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. I didn't fake your signature. You signed it. You just don't remember. No, I didn't. I stepped back. I would remember signing something like this. She gave me a sad smile, one I'd never seen before. It was almost apologetic. You do remember that weekend in January when you got food poisoning, she said. 3 days in bed, barely coherent. Owen came by. You were half conscious. You signed something so I could get the health reimbursement form pushed through faster. It wasn't a big deal, or at least I thought it wasn't. My mouth went dry. I thought you said that was a tax form, I said slowly, trying to reconstruct the memory. She didn't answer. Suddenly the whole thing started to tilt sideways in my mind. That weekend, I had been out of it. I barely remembered anything but dry toast, Pedialyte and vomiting in the upstairs sink. She told me she needed a signature to file some paperwork. I didn't even open my eyes. I just signed. But a non-disclosure agreement? That wasn't just a form. That was a trap, a cage. What does this cover? I asked, staring her down. Why the hell would I need to be gagged legally by your company? She took the paper back from me carefully, as if it were fragile or explosive. You agreed, she said slowly, to remain silent about certain company operations, internal policies, and personal conduct of leadership employees. Leadership employees like Owen? I asked. She nodded. You and him? I pressed. You're in this with him? Tessa hesitated. For the first time that night, her voice cracked. I didn't plan any of this, Murray. I was just trying to survive in a company that eats people alive. He said if I didn't comply, I'd lose everything. He offered protection, promotions, access. It wasn't romantic. Not at first. That phrase, not at first, hit like a punch to the ribs. Did you sleep with him? I asked. The question came out so calmly I barely recognized my own voice. She didn't answer. Not with words. She just looked away. That was all I needed, and yet I didn't leave. I should have walked, should have run. But I stood there because something didn't make sense. The jacket, the woman in the elevator, the NDA. None of this was just about an affair. Tessa, I said carefully, what exactly did you sign up for? That's when she looked back at me, eyes wide with something deeper than guilt, terror. You don't understand, she said. It's not just about him. It's not just me. It's... She stopped. Her eyes flicked to the hallway, then to the rooftop exit. And that's when she whispered the words that changed everything. They're watching us right now. The words didn't fully land at first. They're watching us right now. It sounded like something you'd hear from a paranoid stranger on a subway, not your wife. The woman who used to cry during home renovation shows, and once tried to adopt a third cat because it looked lonely in a photo. But the look in her eyes said everything her voice didn't. This wasn't some metaphor. This wasn't some guilty conscience playing tricks. She meant it literally. We were being watched. I instinctively turned to look toward the hallway, but she grabbed my wrist, not roughly but firm. A silent warning. Don't react, she whispered. They'll notice. Who? I asked under my breath. She scanned the mezzanine, her eyes passing over light fixtures, corners, the slatted vents along the ceiling. Then she nodded subtly toward a mirror hanging across the corridor. It was framed like cheap hotel art, but angled just slightly too high. Suspiciously high. There, she said. That's not a mirror, it's a lens cover. My stomach twisted. Why would your boss have surveillance on his own birthday party? She shook her head. It's not Owen's, it's the company's. All of this building, this floor, the whole event, it's not really a party. It's a live scenario protocol exercise. They do it once a quarter. Employees call it the glove room. What does that mean? I asked, almost laughing at how surreal it all sounded. You know how gloves leave no fingerprints? She said. That's the idea. Everyone plays nice, everyone looks clean, but underneath, everyone's hiding something. The NDA wasn't about keeping me quiet about the affair. It was about keeping me quiet about what I saw. Then what did you see? I asked, louder than I should have. She hushed me quickly, stepped closer, pretended to adjust my collar like we were flirting. I saw a testing room, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to. I was delivering a presentation. They changed floors at the last second. Owen said I clicked the wrong elevator code, but that's not true. I saw inside. 2 glass rooms, one with people, one with observers. It looked like they were recording reactions, psychological, physical, stress response stuff. And the observers weren't just HR. There were people in military uniforms. And one guy, Murray, he looked straight at me and wrote something down. I pulled away from her, stunned. This is insane. I know, she said. I thought so too. Until the next day, when the woman who scheduled my meeting resigned out of nowhere, deleted her socials, moved cities, no warning. Then another guy in accounting transferred, but his LinkedIn went dark. People vanish quietly here, and no one asked questions. She reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. Small, black, taped around the edges like it had been handled more times than she could count. This has footage, she said. I don't know how long I have before they notice it's missing, but I need you to take it. I stared at the drive, frozen. Why me? Because you're already involved, she said. You signed the NDA. Whether you remember or not, you're on record. If I disappear, they'll come to you next. And if you don't already have something to protect yourself, they'll make sure you never do. I didn't want to take it. Every instinct in me screamed to run. But I reached out anyway and took the drive. The metal felt hot, like it had absorbed every layer of panic she'd buried under her skin for months. Then, just as I slipped it into my coat pocket, the elevator at the end of the corridor dinged. We both turned. It was the woman from earlier, the one with the clipboard, lime and cigarette smoke. She didn't step out. She just stood in the open elevator, staring at us like she'd been waiting. Then slowly she lifted a phone to her ear, never breaking eye contact. Tessa whispered, "That's not building staff." I looked at her. "Then who is she?" "She's the cleanup." And then Tessa said something I'll never forget. Not even if I make it to 90 with a fading brain and glass bones. "If I'm not home in 2 hours, delete everything on my laptop. And don't call the police. It'll only make them finish the job." The elevator doors started to close. Tessa slipped away before I could grab her, and just like that, she was gone. I didn't go home right away. My hands were still shaking too badly to drive. Instead, I sat in the cab of my truck, parked a few blocks from the building, the flash drive in my pocket like a ticking bomb. The windows were fogged, and my coat smelled like candle wax and rooftop smoke. I replayed everything Tessa had said in my mind, but it felt like trying to memorize a dream that kept slipping away every time I blinked. The longer I sat there, the more absurd it all seemed. Surveillance, secret experiments, a cleanup agent. I started to convince myself it was paranoia, some elaborate mental break she was having. Until I took the flash drive out of my pocket and noticed something taped to the back of it, just a single handwritten line. "Open on a computer that's never been online." I stared at it for a long time. That night, I drove to my uncle's cabin. 2 hours into the woods, no Wi-Fi, no cell towers, just a rusted-out generator and a dusty old laptop I knew was still in the closet from when I helped him move out last year. I hadn't been there since he passed. The place still smelled like cedar and burnt coffee. I wiped the cobwebs off the keyboard and booted up the machine. Windows 7, no password. It felt like lighting a candle in a power outage. Primitive, but safe. I inserted the flash drive and held my breath. It took a minute for the files to load. At first, it was what you'd expect. Folders labeled Q1 footage, internal HR logs, audit reports. I clicked through them slowly, not sure what I was looking for. But then I saw it, tucked in a folder called Observer B1 Archive, a video file named murrayfinal.mp4. I froze. My name. Not Tessa's, not Owen's, mine. I clicked play. The footage started with a timestamp, January 14th, 3:27 p.m. That was the weekend I'd been sick. Food poisoning, the one where I supposedly signed the NDA half-conscious. The video showed a sterile room, white walls, a metal bed, bright overhead lights. There I was, lying on my side, pale, wrapped in a blanket, hooked up to something. 2 men stood in the room with me, both in lab coats, one holding a clipboard. They weren't speaking, but the footage had subtitles, notes being recorded apparently from another room. Subject exhibits 5 to 7 second lag in recognition response. Motor reflexes dulled, oral consent acquired, legal document signed with minimal resistance. I watched in horror as one of the men held a paper in front of me and guided my hand toward the bottom line. I scribbled something that looked like my signature. My eyes were barely open. I paused the video, stood up, paced the room 3 times, tried not to throw up. They drugged me. They filmed me signing. They called it consent. I kept watching. The footage shifted. A new angle. This time, Tessa entered the room. Her face was tight, controlled. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even talking. She handed something to one of the men, looked like a second document. Then she looked down at me, whispered something into my ear. The audio was low, but I turned the volume up as far as it would go and replayed it 6 times until I could make out the words. "I'm sorry. You're the only way I can stay in." I sat back in the chair, completely still. That moment broke something inside me, not because I didn't expect it, but because she said it like she'd already mourned me, like she'd made peace with what she did before she ever entered that room. She didn't cry because she didn't see a husband in that bed. She saw a lifeline. I spent the next few hours going through the rest of the footage, dozens of others, Different people, same room, some conscious, some sedated, some fighting, some compliant. Different observers, but the same setup. HR was a smokescreen. Owen wasn't just protecting Tessa, he was managing a program, a compliance system. They called it behavioral filtration. People were screened, pushed, tested, then offered opportunities to climb if they agreed to look the other way. And some, like me, were used as leverage. I was never meant to be a husband. I was a safety net, a back door, someone who could be signed over and silenced if things got too complicated. But now I had proof, and they didn't know I had it. Or at least I thought they didn't. Because when I shut down the laptop and stepped outside to get some air, I saw something that made my skin crawl. Footprints in the snow, fresh, leading up to the cabin, but none leading away. I didn't move at first. I just stood there on the cabin porch, watching those footprints. The snow was still falling lightly, soft flakes spiraling down like static. The prints were fresh, deep. Someone had come all the way to the door. But the strangest part was the door itself, still locked from the inside. No signs of force, no disturbance. Just evidence that someone had been close enough to listen, maybe close enough to wait. I looked around. Nothing but trees. No tire tracks, no lights in the distance. Nothing but my breath fogging in the cold. I turned back inside and locked the door again. And that's when I made my decision. I didn't panic. Didn't grab a weapon. Didn't flee. Instead, I went to the old desktop and started copying the contents of the flash drive onto 3 blank DVDs I'd found in the closet. I labeled each one with nothing but a black marker. Q1 footage, internal. I slipped them into padded envelopes, each with a handwritten note. If I go missing, publish this. No redactions, no edits. I addressed the envelopes to 3 people. One to a local journalist who'd once exposed a corrupt county judge. One to a mid-level HR director at the company, someone I remembered from the Christmas party who looked uneasy the entire time. And one to a woman named Deirdre, who ran a whistleblower forum I'd found online that same night. Then I did the simplest, most powerful thing I could. I mailed them. The next day I returned home. No one followed me. Nothing was ransacked. Tessa wasn't there. Her clothes were gone, drawers emptied, toothbrush missing. A single post-it note on the kitchen counter read, "I know what you saw. I'm not proud, but I'm not the one running anymore." That was it. No apology, no plea for forgiveness, but that was okay. I didn't need closure from her. I had something better now. Proof, protection, and a plan. I quit my job the next week, quietly. Told people I was making a lifestyle change. I started doing freelance warehouse logistics for small businesses, nothing flashy. Stayed offline, kept my circle tight. And most importantly, I stayed boring. And it worked. The envelopes did their job. Nothing dramatic, no front page headline. But 3 weeks later, I saw a quiet press release online. Senior leadership changes announced at Palmdale Organics. Internal restructuring underway. Owen's name was gone. So was the HR manager. No explanation. Just gone. No one came for me. No one needed to. Because I didn't fight them directly. I outlasted them. I used the one thing they'd underestimated in me, patience. And now, when I look back at that rooftop, at that moment I got the text that said, "Come." I smiled a little, because I did come. I came back, but I didn't stay. And in the end, that's what saved me.